Okay, we're back. We're dealing with the fifth stanza of the Stanzas of Dzyan in the Cosmic Fire. We're wondering what are the sources of these high beings called the first degree, the second degree, and the third degree. We know that they do occur, or the sources are found above the level of the higher mental plane. The higher mental plane might be considered the sphere of blue. That's one way to do it. The sources of these beings could be atmic, buddhic, monastic, but we're also thinking that they could be monadic particularly and affect the spiritual triad in the preparation for the creation of the egoic lotus. Now let us look at the next section. Test, yes, okay. Quivering the sphere, heard the third take up the note, pealing it forth, a full-toned chord smote the ears of the watchers of the flame. This is the important part. It's taken quite a while to reach these sons of Manas. You know, the solar angels already have a highly developed Manas and a very highly developed love nature. Perhaps in the next solar system they will be involved in using the will even more. So what is this sphere that is quivering? Well, there was also a sphere, what was it said before? Let's see, how did it go? It was active, right? The sphere was what? Restless. It was restless. Now it's quivering. It must be the same sphere that is restless or quivering. So it may very well be that the restless quivering sphere is the sphere in which the egoic lotus will take form. So let's just look at this. I might have to write that in. Quivering the sphere. Which sphere, as there are a number possibly indicated, could it be the same sphere which was restless? As this word and quivering are very similar. Has to do with a rapid movement, a vibrational movement. So could the sphere of blue indeed be the mental sphere of the higher mental plane? It is possible. So what do we have here? Quivering the sphere, heard the third take up the note. And the third is the third ray source, pealing it forth, sending it out, a full-tone chord smote on the ears of the watchers of the flame. Now, one of the things we want to realize is, where do you get your soul ray anyway? And it turns out, as you'll see from Esoteric Psychology 1 or 2, that the, is that on? Yeah, I think so. Yes, that the soul ray is gathered from the ray of your triadal permanent atoms. Every one of your triadal permanent atoms has the same ray. And that ray, as it is focused in your monastic permanent atom, is conveyed to the causal body, egoic lotus, and determines the ray of your egoic lotus. It's the same as your lower triadal rays. So there has to be a preparation within the triad for the egoic lotus to take shape. And there are some solar angels which are actually associated with the monastic permanent atom, and with the petals, and with the atomic triangle. See, let's look at the map. Some solar angels are associated with the atomic triangle in the lower part of the lotus. Let's write down, let's call it here. Other solar angels are associated with the petals as a whole, and with the tiers of petals and particular petals. And another group of solar angels is associated with the monastic permanent atom. So all 3 points of the triangle, in a way, have solar angels supervising or conditioning them in some manner. So the sphere, and I'm thinking it may be sphere the third, takes up the note, which was the third was the monastic part of the triad, which took up the note, I believe, peeled it forth, and a full-toned chord, which is now like AUM, it's a complete chord, hit, smote means to hit, struck upon the ears of the Watchers of the Flame. When you look at the word Watchers of the Flame, what does it suggest to you? Watchers of the Flame. Different words are given. Well, yes, I would think even the solar angel, of which the guardian angel is as much as can be brought into the incarnated life. So the guardian angel is somewhat less than the solar angel, but is a representative of the solar angel. Remember, what kinds of devas are the devas which become guardian angels? Do you remember? What color? They have a specific color. The guardian angels are taken from a specific color of deva. Well, maybe yours is. Here, I will show you the quotation if I can find it. Here it is. The white devas of the air and water who preside over the atmosphere work with certain aspects of electrical phenomena and control the seas, rivers, and streams. Pretty practical stuff, huh? From among them, at a certain stage in their evolution, because they evolved too, are gathered the guardian angels of the race when in physical plane incarnation. So these are actually physical devas. They are on the level of the air. Each unit of the human family has his guardian deva. They are white. Well, maybe white is not a color, but they are white. Page 913 of a treatise on cosmic fire. The guardian angels are white, and guardian angel. Okay, and here a glimpse of the guardian angel, who is the dim reflection of the angel of the presence, the solar angel, which walks with each human being from the moment of birth until death, embodying as much of the available light as the man at any given moment upon the path of evolution can use and express. A dim reflection of the solar angel, but embodying as much light from the solar angel as can be brought usefully into the life. White devas who are reflections of the solar angels. Interesting, right? When one speaks of guardian angels, one gets interested. So, the sphere of blue. Well, it's certainly no lower than the mental plane, and I gave an argument for the atomic plane. So, they heard, how does it go? Quivering the sphere, heard the third take up the note. Now, the third is either the third aspect of the triad or the third aspect of the triad reflecting a third-ray monadic source. They heard the third take up the note, pealing it forth, and a full-tone chord smote upon the ears of the watchers. Is the third the threefold third kingdom, the animal kingdom, which awaits individualization through the intervention of the solar angels? Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe the third is the is the third aspect of the spiritual triad, on the basis of which the egoic lotus is built. Ray the same. And over which a variety of solar angels presides. Well, sometimes, when he says, this is the third, well, it could be the third kingdom in nature, couldn't it? The animal kingdom is the third. On the other hand, it could be the third aspect of the spiritual triad. So quivering, we could say, quivering the sphere of the high mind, heard the third take up the note, pealing it forth, a full-tone chord, and smote upon the ears of the watchers of the flame. This is the first time that the watchers of the flame have been specifically reached by what has happened in the first degree, second degree, and third degree. So it's all a process. The solar logos says it's time. The planetary logos says it's time. These higher representatives, first, second, third degree, say it's time. The blue sphere is quivering, and then the solar angels hear it's time. The solar angels hear that it's time. All right. So they are hovering, they are waiting, they have come from the heart of the sun, they have been stimulated by Venus, they have probably been part of the Venus globe or the Venus chain of the Earth scheme. There's a path for the solar angels. Maybe that path is something like heart of the sun, Venus, Venus chain of the Earth scheme, Venus globe of the Venus chain, and then finally to the Earth chain and globe. Okay, the lords of the flame arose and prepared themselves. What does that sound like to you? The lords of the flame arose from what? Arose from what? And we could say, let's just say, arose from their meditation, which we are supposed to allow them to perform instead of interrupting it all the time. Remember, so sometimes let your solar angel tend to its own business, we're sometimes told. But we don't even have a solar angel yet because we don't exist. Of course, I'm discounting the idea, I'm not considering the idea that some of us might be moon chain humanity and might certainly have already existed as egoic lotuses with some petals open. He says that the egoic lotuses that came from the moon chain often had several petals open, which they opened on the moon chain itself. When did they come in? Do you remember that? When did those lotuses from the moon chain come in? Okay. Now in Lemuria, the individualized men from the previous solar system came in. And in Atlantis, in the third root race of Atlantis, the developed egoic lotuses from the moon chain came in. And of course it fits with the number 3 because they came from the third chain, and so they had to wait for many more primitive human beings to develop up to a point before they could enter. And even now, on our planet, as we know, moon chain humanity and earth chain humanity are very different and have different agendas and have certain conflicts. And Master DK told us that the problem of capital and labor, which we see being worked out right now in the stock market and sovereign debt crisis, the problem of capital and labor is originating due to the interrelationship between moon chain humanity and earth humanity, earth chain humanity. In other words, moon chain humanity is very materially intelligent and tends to gather the energy to itself, depriving labor, i.e. earth chain humanity, of what it needs to survive. So there's a selfishness here in moon chain, an intellectual material selfishness in moon chain humanity, which is in the process of being worked out now. We talk in our country, America, we talk about the 1% and the 99%. The 1% seems to have all the resources because of their intelligence. The 99% is feeling cheated or deprived or somehow swindled, you know. That's what it's all about. Yeah, this Occupy movement is said to represent the 99%. Well, I'm not saying that the 99% are earth chain humanity, but it's that kind of break. The super intelligent, materially inclined people capturing the energy flows and the others not having sufficient. Exactly, exactly. That's it. Moon chain. Say it a little louder, please. Well, that's what I tried to avoid saying. I think, but you can be pretty sure that among that 1%, if that's the right figure, or 0.1 of 1%, are many moon chain humanity who have developed third-ray material intelligence to a great degree. So I wouldn't go down on the numbers and say this is it, but the tendency is there. Okay. Well, not really, because the material intelligence of the Jewish and Arabic group, the third root race of the third subrace of the fifth root race. In other words, if you really look at some of the super rich today, they are the oil-owning third subrace Arabic group. But so they may well have come from the moon chain, some of them, but the Jewish group per se came from the previous solar system, which was also ruled by the number 3. And they're so small, numbers so small. But we don't know what the actual number is because of those original types that came from that first major solar system. They may be found in all groups, and you can't recognize who they are. That's the trouble. Yes, and that's just a phase of the country, you know. It's a selfish material phase where you can do anything you want and take what you want. And every country seems to go through it. You know, they've been released from the restrictions of communism, so they're free to be selfish. Yeah. But okay, let's see how that works out with the Aquarian pressures. Because what we see right now are pressures towards equalization, or let's call it this. Let's call it pressures towards distribution. In other words, Aquarius is the sign of distribution, isn't it? In other words, like the blood. Suppose that the blood in your body flows to every place except your right arm. What's going to happen to that right arm, see? So a reasonable circulation of energy, financial energy, to all parts of the body is needed. Otherwise, a part of the body becomes corrupt and can corrupt all the rest. So that's what we're dealing with right now. Part of the corruption is poverty and lack of opportunity to fulfill oneself in the world. So we really are dealing with a battle between the have and the have-nots, and it is working out in political revolutions at this time. In other words, there's a lack of sharing of power and of resources in the world at this time. And that's what these revolutions seem to be about. And this is our problem. We're, for the next number of hundreds of years, we will be in this issue of right distribution. Now, you can well imagine that people who have a lot have become used to it, and they want to just keep what they've got, which includes wealthier countries as well, and do not want to see their standard of living compromised so that others can have a better standard of living. The real answer to this is inventive resourcefulness, so that new inventions can come about whereby everyone can have sufficiency. And this would be the cheap energy idea, Yeah, you were going to say. New energies are needed. Yes, energies. So the lords of the flame, who had been contemplating, as they really like to do, and we're going to see in one of these stanzas that 30 billion lords of the flame decided not to go in, and 60 billion decided to go in. So the 30 billion said, I'd rather be contemplating, I'll wait until you look better. Because in those days, a human being was not very pleasant looking. I mean, maybe 100 feet tall, very crude, very stupid, not exactly the ideal house to be living in. So the Lords of the Flame says, we'll wait until the 7th round, and then we'll come in and do a little. And you other guys, you can go in now and have a bad time of it. We'll see you when things look better. But then karma caught up with them, and that we will discuss. It's possible to make mistakes even when you're a solar angel. Well, heavens, the planetary logos is much greater being than a solar angel, and the planetary logos made mistakes, right? We have a major mistake being made by the planetary logos on the moon chain. It was a bad decision. He decided premature compassion was the fault, letting an undeveloped form of life out of confinement prematurely. It was a mistake, and the planetary logos is paying for that. So mistakes can be made on every level. If it's possible for a man, if it's possible for a Buddha, if it's possible for a planetary logos, then why shouldn't it be possible for a solar logos or other beings who do not have infinite knowledge to make mistakes? So you're in good company. Don't feel bad. The planetary logos too got it wrong. The lords of the flame arose and prepared themselves. Well, I'm saying, they love to contemplate. Now we are dealing either here with the solar angels from the heart of the sun, and also central spiritual sun, or with the Kumaras who ventured from the Venus globe or the Venus chain of the Earth scheme to the Earth globe, or where did the Kumaras come from anyway? Think of it. Sanat Kumara is really a representative of our planetary logos. So what's his path? What's the path of Sanat Kumara? I'll try to find it here. And the path of, here's the path of Sanat Kumara. Here is the Venus chain of the Earth scheme. Here is the Venus globe of the Venus chain. Here is, this one has to be considered too, but here is, you see, DK is hiding so much occultism in all these books, but he just counts on the fact that few people will study the charts, really, until the new esoteric schools really happen, so he can safely put in all of this occult information and it will just go undetected all these years. And I'm pointing to this line between the Venus globe of the Venus scheme and the Hello Venus and the Mercury globe of the Venus scheme, Venus chain. Hello, Mimi. Hello, Julie. And if you follow that, where did the Kumaras come from? Two Kumaras have just come into the room. They've had a good flight from the London scheme of the London Globe to the Danish chain. Okay. So anyway, here's the path. Here is Venus. Wow. And here is a path that leads to the Venus globe of the Earth chain, and another path that leads right down straight to the Earth globe of the Earth chain, and that's where we are. So two lines are possible for the coming of the Kumaras. How many Kumaras were there that came to our little globe, that flashed forth with intermittent fire to our little globe? 105 Kumaras. Now really there are 108 Kumaras, you know. If you include the 3 esoteric Kumaras, or, you know, the sort of equivalent to Buddhas of activity, and the 3 esoteric Kumaras make the 108, which is basically, how does it go? 9 times, let's see, 972. If you divide 108 into 972, you get 9. So that's related to the head center, which has 972 petals. 960 plus 12. And if you take the 108, which is this number related to the head center, and you divide it into the 972, you come up with 9. So 9 times 108 is 972. It's a kind of a number of completion. The head center has 972. It's a number of completion. And also, it's a 9 too, isn't it? 108 is a 9, 1 plus 8, and 972 is a 9. 9 plus 9 is 18, 1 plus 8 is 9. So we're dealing with completion all the way around. Anyway, we're in the 5th stanza. So I say here that these lords of the flame, we're either dealing with the solar angels from the heart of the sun, etc., or we're dealing with Kumaras. Now, lords of the flame is usually the term given to solar angels, but occasionally the Kumaras can be called lords of the flame. Let's see, how many times does the term lords of the flame occur in the teaching? 16 times. Here they are, solar angels, the instrumentation of the lords of the flame and their enduring sacrifice. Of course, Sanat Kumara and the Kumaras are sacrificing. But now look at this. This is the reason for the ambiguity of the term lords of the flame. The present Mahachohan is not the original one who held the office at the founding of the hierarchy in Lemurian days. It was held by one of the Kumaras, or lords of the flame. And Kumaras are greater beings than solar angels. So lords of the flame can be either solar angels or Kumaras, who came into incarnation with Sanat Kumara. But he took hold of his position during the second subrace of the Atlantean root race. Lords of the flame, one of the great hierarchies of spiritual beings who guide the solar system. Now, that's interesting because it must be a higher category of Lord of the Flame if it's guiding the whole solar system and not just our planet. They took control of the evolution of humanity upon the planet about 18 million years ago during the middle of the Lemurian or third root race. In this case, the Lords of the Flame are Kumaras, holy, chaste youths, youth of endless summers. This is a pure, chaste youth. This is what the word Kumara means. The Lords of the Flame who were called in, and they effected the transfer of polarization from the lower atom of the triad to the lowest atom of the personality. So this is a very interesting idea. This time they are solar angels, aren't they? Well, look, it all makes sense, really, because eventually the solar angels, in their groups together, become planetary logoi. and the planetary logoi are lords of the flame. The Kumaras, there are two kinds of Kumaras, maybe there's more. Sanat Kumara is essentially the planetary logos, an emanation of the planetary logos. What are the other Kumaras along with him? Well, they are not now planetary logoi, but three of them were planetary logoi in the previous solar system, so they're very high beings. They are higher than the solar angels. So what I'm trying to say, when you run into the term Lords of the Flame, you have to realize it can be either way. Again, the Lords of the Flame within the solar system itself responded when the microcosm sounded the fifth subtone of the monadic note and involved themselves in human evolution. In human evolution. This seems to me solar angels again. The Lords of the Flame and their work in connection with this planet may be spoken of in terms of four colors: indigo blue, orange, and yellow. Very interesting in terms of color. These words apply to the monastic principle, that fire of intelligence or reason which the Lords of the Flame imparted. There they are, solar angels again. They're giving man his new self-reflective intelligence. Okay, let's see if there's anything else. The Lords of the Flame. Here they are, solar angels, in Cosmic Fire, page 425. This point has seldom been brought out in the teaching. The advent of the Lords of the Flame, the electrical storm which ushered in the period of man, was distinguished by disaster, chaos, and destruction of many in the third kingdom of nature. So whenever you have a new kingdom emerging, and we have today emerging what kingdom? The fifth kingdom of souls is now emerging. We can expect disaster, chaos, and destruction of many in the fourth kingdom of nature. See what I mean? In other words, the wars are not over. Whenever the new kingdom emerges, the previous kingdom often suffers in the form life. Okay, let's see if there's anything else. You're looking forward to that? Look at this here. The transmutative process, etc., etc. The coming of the Lords of the Flame from the second or Venus globe, preeminently the globe with which this kingdom has a mysterious connection. So the solar angels are in a way earth beings, even though they came from the heart of the sun, but they have a connection with the second globe, which in this case is the sixth. It depends on which way you're moving. Second is the sixth, sixth is the second. See, the occult method of moving. Well, that's a little confusing, but there's a clockwise and counterclockwise approach. And from the clockwise approach, the sixth is the second. Okay, let's look a little more, as long as we're looking at the idea of Lords of the Flame. When the hour strikes and the vehicles for booty are to be coordinated, certain great beings, Lords of the Flame, or Manasadevas, through driving external force, come in conjunction with the material of that subplane and vitalize it with their own energy. I suppose it's the third subplane. Here they are, solar angels again. And here, solar angels again. And the Lords of the Flame are active in various different planetary schemes. We've dealt with individualization through the coming in of the Lords of the Flame because it is the prime method in this solar system, which is the second ray unitive solar system, requiring the benign uniters. Does that word mean anything to us? Benign uniters. This is what they are called, meaning they mean well and they are magnetic and bring things together. Benign. Method employed. Okay, yeah, here. Yes. Well, here, let me just show you this. Here are about 20 solar angel names. As soon as I can get them. These are names for the solar angels. Lords of the Flame, of course. Builders of the body of the ego, producers of individualization, producers of realized consciousness, the Agnishvatas, the great devas of mind, the self-consciousness principles, the builders of the egoic body, planetary spirits, asuras, even though asuras have a bad name, because the word asura means not asura. And asura, S-U-R-Y, means sunlike, so it means not sunlike. But there's been an inversion there. The good guys are considered the bad guys. In other words, Prometheus is considered bad. The gods say, naughty Prometheus, you stole our fire and you gave it to human beings. So the Asuras are really Suryas, after all, even though conventional religion repudiated them because they want to free man from the ancient rhythms of the lunar nature. So they are not considered, they're considered angel non grata, to some of the conventional religions. Solar angels, fire Dhyanis, Manasadevas, sons of wisdom, the vehicles of the divine mind, the Dhyan-Chohanic forces, the aggregate of the Ahi, lords of the flame, the divine Tetracties, there are probably other names. But what we should have in our mind is that lords of the flame can mean Kumaras. Lords of the flame can probably even mean higher Kumaras. But most often in these books, lords of the flame are our own solar angels. Not that we have ownership over them, but they are those beings who are very closely affiliated to us and who will one day be higher lords of the flame because they are on their way to becoming Kumaras. They will be breathed out again from the sun in groups to become planetary logoi, who essentially are Kumaras. Okay. Now, where are we? We are over here, quivering the sphere, presumably the blue higher mental sphere, heard the third take up the note, heard the third aspect of the triad take up the note, which had been sounded forth by the third degree, as it's called, not the human third initiation, but by these beings called the third degree, pealing it forth like a bell, a full-tone chord smote upon the ears of the watchers of the flame. Now, of course, the other way of doing this, and I did suggest it, is that heard the third take up the note. Quivering the sphere, heard the third take up the note. Now, is it possible that the animal kingdom, which is getting ready to be individualized, took up the note and that its chord struck the angels? In other words, the angels are being either smitten, smote, hit, impacted from below or from above. So it depends on what we mean by the third. It's either the third aspect of the triad or it's the animal men preparing to be individualized. So the terms watchers of the flame suggests the hovering solar angels, hovering in meditation, whose time for intervention has almost arrived. The lords of the flame arose and prepared themselves. It was decision's hour. Now you say, well, they had no choice. They just had to go in and do what they're supposed to do. But what we learn in others of the stanzas is that 1/3 of the solar angels refused to enter. And we will see that. 30 billion solar angels refused to enter. 30 with 9 zeros refused to enter. Now, at the moment, there are only, the numbers are a problem, but there's only 60 billion human monads in the solar system. It does seem a small number. It would seem the number is more appropriate for Earth, since 6/7 of all monads are out of incarnation. And we've got 7 billion people. 6 billion, 7 billion. But anyway, 30 billion refused to enter, and so did they ever enter, or are they still waiting to come in? Because they were given a karmic penalty that instead of waiting for the 7th round before coming in, they would have to wait for 14 sevens before they could do it again. Which means, instead of entering in the 7th round of the Earth chain, Mercury chain gone, 6th chain gone, 7th chain gone, then you would have to almost go into the next solar system and do chain 1, chain 2, chain 3. Let's see, how many do we have with 14 sevens? My goodness, it depends on how they're counted. But let's just say they had to wait a long time, and they're probably still waiting to have their day of opportunity. How much is 7 times 14? 20, 98? Something like that. So do they really have to wait 98 rounds before their opportunity comes? Or do they have to wait 98 root races? Anyway, those numbers are not given, but they refused their duty. They did not enter. They laughed at those who did enter. They said, see you in the 7th round. And it turns out that the god of the planet had a different idea. Okay, so was there a choice, the hour of decision? Or did the present hour of planetary development, solar-logoic fiat, in other words, solar logos says do this, determine what the solar angels were required to do? No, some could choose not to incarnate. Okay, then we move on. Quivering the sphere heard the third take up the note, pealing it forth. A full-tone chord smote on the ears of the watchers of the flame. The lords of the flame prepared themselves. It was decision's hour. The 7 lords of the 7 spheres watched breathless the result. The great lord of sphere the 4th awaited the oncoming. Okay, now who are these lords and what are the spheres? Any ideas here? The lords of the flame arose and prepared themselves. Okay, it was decision's hour, and probably we are considering them to be solar angels at this point, even though they could be the Kumaras. Then the 7 lords of the 7 spheres watched breathless the result. Who are they? Who could they be? How many spheres are there? A lord is just a ruler of a sphere, right? So what could this be? The great lord of sphere the 4th awaited the oncoming. Any ideas here? If you have an idea, give me a chance to get a sip of tea. An idea? This is English breakfast tea. I know it's a little out of sequence, but so remember, we talked about it. A plane is a sphere, a ray is a sphere, a globe is a sphere, a chain is a sphere, a scheme is a sphere. There's 5 different spheres right there. They're all spheres. But sphere the 4th, well, that could be Earth, but we are already dealing with Earth. Suppose we're dealing with the lords of the various planes. Then what would sphere the 4th be? And who would he be? And what would be his name? We're dealing with planes. Let's say we're dealing with planes. And they watch breathless because, you know, not everything is determined. There's free will here, right? So how will it go? Who could we be talking about? Have we heard of Raja Deva lords? What are they? What are Raja Deva lords? I'm sorry? Equivalent of? Okay. Well, there might be some Raja Deva lords of cosmic planes who would be. Generally speaking, they rule the entire plane of a solar within a solar system or within a planet. So Who is Kshiti? Who is Varuna? Who is Agni? Who is Indra? Raja Deva lords of the planes connected with our earth scheme. There's another, Varuna is the Raja Deva lord for the entire astral plane of the earth scheme. Thus it is for Indra, Buddhic plane, Agni, mental plane, Kshiti, and talk about equivalence. DK says they are the equivalent of the 6th or 7th initiation, something like that. Maybe 7th initiation. So they are very high beings. And they're involved in this process too. So who then, if I'm correct about this anyway, who is the great Lord of Sphere of the Fourth? Awaited the oncoming. And why should he await the oncoming? The oncoming of whom? Of the Watchers. And what did we just say about the solar angels and the Watchers of the Flame? What did we say about them a little earlier, before lunch, when amnesia overtakes everybody? Because we looked at a chart about the Watchers, and we looked at a chart about the solar angels, and we saw in that chart, well, I'll do it this way. We saw that there's over here where it says comments. What do you have on the 4th level? Solar angels, Agnishvatas, Buddhic. So the great Watcher, or the great Lord of Sphere of the Fourth, awaited the oncoming. Solar angels gravitating to the Buddhic plane, perhaps? Could be. Because remember, the solar angels are full of buddhi, right? They somehow are educating man, both in manas and especially in buddhi, because they're involved in all the initiations. In other words, what is their fire particularly? Their type of fire, solar angelic fire, is particularly called not fire by friction. Exactly. Their particular fire is solar fire, which is really Buddhic fire. As a matter of fact, interestingly enough, in terms of Agni, the bigger Agni, the planes of solar fire are the Buddhic, Atmic, and Monadic planes. Those are the planes whereon solar fire is found. Buddhic, Atmic, and Monadic planes. So it's not just confined to the egoic lotus on the higher mental plane. Here, maybe I can find that. Just take a quick look here. Sometimes my AAB extracts. Remind me to give you my AAB extracts. Agni? I know, but it keeps on adding. And if you don't want it, you don't have to have it. No, you don't have to. See what happens to your research then. Okay, now, Agni, solar fire. Okay, is anything going on? Oh, because I spelled it wrong. I spelled it Angie. Agni. Okay, let's see if I can find it. That came as a shock to me because I realized that solar fire is not just the product of the higher mental plane. The higher mental plane is about as low as it goes. And really, it originates on still higher planes. So in terms, see, who is Agni? Who is big Agni? Who is little Agni? Sounds like a children's story, doesn't it? Big Agni, little Agni. Here we go. He, Lord Agni, shows forth as solar fire on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and as fire by friction on the 5th, 6th, and 7th. So Lord Agni is the essentially Brahma, Fohat, the personality nature of our solar logos. Lord Agni, in the big, in the large sense, is the ruler of the lower 18 cosmic subplanes. He is the personality, in a way, of the Solar Logos. But from a smaller point of view, Agni is a Rajadeva Lord who is the ruler of the mental plane. Right? And in a greater sense, Lord Agni may be the ruler of the entire cosmic mental plane. There's a cosmic Agni too. It just keeps going, you know. We have generic names. We have terms which we can continue to transpose higher and higher. Like the word Manvantara, right? Little Manvantaras, medium Manvantaras, big Manvantaras. Depends on who the Manus are, because it's the interval between two Manus. So we're particularly interested in studying the Manvantara now, which is a chain Manvantara. In other words, just a round of a chain. That's a Manvantara for all practical purposes. But from another point of view, a Manvantara is an entire day of Brahma, as I tried to show on page 39, your footnote there, on page 39 of Cosmic Fire, and it's an immense period of time. So somewhere in the book it's hinted at the different time periods. There are different Manvantaras. So what's the thing to bear in mind? Sometimes there are words which can apply in different contexts. Larger and larger, smaller and smaller contexts, the same word. Like the word Kumara. Many, or Lords of the Flame, or Manasadevas. The planetary logoi are Manasadevas, but so are the solar angels, Manasadevas. It's the same word, applied in a different context. Okay, so anyway, let's see if I can, okay, get rid of this about Agni. Anyway, you got the idea, right? Okay. Now moving on. So the great Lord of Sphere the Fourth awaited the oncoming. Who was that? Well, maybe it's the god Indra, the storm god. The great god Indra is the Rajadeva Lord of the Buddhic plane, and the Lords of the Flame, or the Watchers here, gravitate towards the Buddhic plane. It's a plane with which they have much to do. Now, how Buddhic are we? When do we become really Buddhic? Do you feel very Buddhic this afternoon? It depends on whether they had angel food out there for lunch or something. When do you become Buddhic? Really Buddhic. Which week? Yeah, well, you're getting close. The third initiation is close. But the fourth initiation is what we need, don't we? To become really Buddhic. So the fourth initiation is that which, as I said before, where you earn your wings and you step up to the feet of the solar angels, so to speak. You get wings. They already have wings. Wings are very useful where there's air. The Buddhic plane is the airplane, right? You fly in the air. So we step up to the feet of the solar angels who are, in a way, positioned on the Buddhic plane at the fourth initiation. Okay. So now, let's see if I said anything about this. Who are the seven lords of the seven spheres? Could be the Rajadeva lords. Okay, could be. Now, of course, one other interpretation is that it could be, it was decisions hour. Well, I can't see why the other planetary logoi should be all that concerned and should be breathless about it. Because they are also lords of seven spheres, aren't they? Should it be the chain lords? Should it be the globe lords? It seems to me it's occurring on those levels where the manifestation is to occur within our Earth scheme. I think it is I think the Rajadeva laws are a good way to think of it. Okay. The great Lord of Sphere the Fourth awaited the oncoming. Now, I think we're saying here, does this mean that the solar angels were not yet really focused on the Buddhic plane, but were oncoming, as it were? So, in this statement, is this statement made because the solar angels are intimately associated with the Buddhic plane according to the quality of love wisdom? I think so. Do the solar angels descend into their sacrifice from the fourth sphere? In other words, where is the sacrifice of the solar angels occurring? Why is it sacrifice for them? Remember that sacrifice is confinement, correct? Look at Sanat Kumara. He doesn't leave his post, even though he could go elsewhere. So, what is the nature of the sacrifice of the solar angels? If sacrifice, is it? So they come into a state of imprisonment, right? Is the causal body a state of imprisonment? For them it is. And even for us, once we approach the fourth initiation, it also is. And then, of course, they are particularly invested there, but they stimulate the mental unit, they stimulate the brain of man. So some of their energy streams go there, but a part of their consciousness is always within the lower temple. So that is a sacrifice. But, for a long time I've wondered, and many of my friends have wondered, and they've wondered and they've wandered all over the map. Where do you put the solar angels? Really? Are they only on the higher mental plane? That's their place of sacrifice, isn't it? So if they have a place of service and sacrifice, it's like going to work, Suppose you work in a very unpleasant factory. You live okay, your house is okay, but every day you have to go to work in this rather unpleasant factory. Is your place of work your home? Not really, right? So the solar angels are likely to have their home more on a higher plane, right? Heart of the sun, then into our planetary sphere, with Venus helping, it might be, there's a triangle there. Then to the Venus chain, probably the Venus globe, and they have a particular connection with the Venus globe of the Earth chain. As I've tried to show in some of these maps, right here, this is their route. And they end up here, but they have a particular connection with this globe in the Earth chain, if you can see it. And they have a particular connection with the Venus chain here, which interestingly, look at the occultism here. It's like a five-pointed star. The Venus chain of the Earth scheme is represented as a five-pointed star, as a pentagon. That fits very well, doesn't it? In other words, DK is hiding stuff here. Look at Mercury. Mercury is the oddest of all. Look at this. I mean, this is a little bit of a digression, right? But look at the Mercury chain. Very strange, right? With the fifth globe, you got big globes and little globes, major and minor globes. This thing is loaded with teaching that has not yet been explained. And Mercury is the fifth chain. It's not a beautiful symmetrical pentagram, but the fifth globe of the Mercury chain is right in the middle. It is central to everything. So I've tried to explain this in some of my commentaries. Of course, I've forgotten what I've said, but you get the idea. There's a diamond and a triangle there. And somehow, very much, in his description of Mercury and Venus, he has hidden the occult truths. Earth is different. It's a square. And the smaller globes are on the outside, and all the central ones are in the inside. They're big. 3, 5, and 7. Number 4 seems a bit minor, and that's where we are now. You are here. Is a globe made up of only... It's just little angel presence. Just reading your thoughts, Julie, just... Okay. Okay, so, very good. Look at Mars here. This is quite amazing. It's all related to the number 3. The arrangements are significant and where they go, but some of them are left generic. He's not telling us much about Neptune. He's not telling us much about Jupiter. He's just leaving them as generic designs. Okay, well, why was I there? That's a good question. I'm sure there was a reason. So, in other words, are the solar angels Buddhic in their nature? That's the question. They are initiates of all degrees, at least in terms of the previous solar system. They were in a previous solar system where they manifested as human beings. Then they came into this solar system after going to Sirius and becoming qualified as solar angels. But they are said to be initiates of all degrees. So what is all degrees? Is it all degrees with respect to the previous solar system or with respect to this one? If they are initiates of 9 degrees, all degrees, they don't even belong on the cosmic physical plane, do they? They belong on the cosmic astral plane, where they do tend to, they've already been there. Solar angels have been to the cosmic astral plane, haven't they? How do we know that? Okay, there are these paths. Correct? There are these paths. And there are 7 paths, or 9. And here is where they go, more or less. Path to Sirius, path, Sirius, cosmic, astral. Let's see if we got that. Here's where they go. So if you become a solar angel by going to Sirius, look where you go. The path to Sirius leads to the cosmic astral plane, so they've been there already. And they've come back. And when we, some of us, maybe the bulk of humanity, will become solar angels, we will go to the cosmic astral plane too, and then we will come back to the cosmic physical and do our service. So solar angels have really been there. So what are they doing on the Buddhic plane? And all I can say is it seems to be a plane that's much connected with the pure quality of love from the cosmic astral plane. And that's why they take up an anchor there, and then they hold their nose and go underwater and somehow manage to live in the stifling air of the higher mental plane through sacrifice. But you have to get ready to do that too in the next solar system. Don't hold your breath. I mean, it's a long time. Another 155 trillion plus another 300 trillion, 450 trillion years, according to the ageless wisdom. I think we're going to have to work that out with science. It tends to, the scientific measurements tend to be a little shorter than the occult measurements, unless there's a blind operating there. Okay, are there any questions? Like, why am I here? All right. All right. So anyway, the lower was prepared. The lower was prepared. My computer is protesting. Who was the lower? What's the lower? That it was prepared. Let's take a look. The lower was prepared. The upper was resigned. This is the solar angelic sigh. What do you mean, 25 million years in a causal body? Okay. The upper was resigned. The great 5 waited for the point of equidistant merging. The foundation note ascended. Deep answered unto deep. The 5-fold chord awaited the response from those whose hour had come. That's a tough one. This is tough. Do you have any thoughts on this before I reveal how few I have? I'll tell you what, this is symbolic language. It requires a special faculty of mind to get into it. We would call it buddhi manas, to try to get into this stuff. Otherwise, you just look at it like anybody would look at it and said, next life, please. So let's go on. We'll skip this part. Okay. The lower was prepared. The lower appears to be the receptive vehicle of man upon the subtler planes. The lower mental is especially important here. Let's see, the vehicles built upon the atomic triangle. What is the atomic triangle? Who are the members of the atomic triangle, as it's sometimes called? What three items are found in the atomic triangle? You know this. The permanent atom and the permanent atom and the unit. So, you know, those are the members of the atomic triangle. Remember, they form this, eventually they spark between each other and they form this rapidly rotating fiery triangle, which eventually shatters the connection between the monad and the causal body and all that. So it's the, you know, those permanent atoms plus the mental unit, right? That's the atomic triangle. The upper was, excuse me, the upper was resigned. What does that mean? Resigned. I propose here that the watchers of the flame were resigned to their sacrificial fate. Meaning, okay, we're going to take the plunge. Why do we do this? You know, obviously there has to be a tremendous amount of love in these Buddhic beings who have already been to Sirius, the cosmic Christ, right? Unless there are more training grounds for solar angels than Sirius, but apparently we have that as one of the major training grounds. I wouldn't be surprised if along the way you don't stop at Venus on the way to Sirius. They have a lot in common. It's like Venus is a smaller type of Sirius. It's like Venus is to the Earth as Sirius is to the Sun. I've often used that analogy, correct? I think, although there is a connection with Sirius, Leo, Jupiter, there is a triangle there, it seems to me that you're on your way to Orion via Jupiter. So there's kind of our solar system, Jupiter, Betelgeuse connection. I mean, who can say what one does particularly, but I do believe that as Jupiter is to our sun, so Venus is to Sirius. In other words, in our solar system, there are planets which, each one of which is more connected with one of 7 solar systems than the other. Our sun is a member of 7 solar systems, and Jupiter is that planet which is most connected to our sun. Venus is that planet which is most connected to Sirius. Maybe Neptune is the planet most connected to Fomolo, which is a neighboring sort of aspirational Neptunian star. And so it goes. We have to look for which are the solar systems that are connected most directly to our particular planets. Can we turn on the brighter lights now? Thank you. Oh, yes. Let there be light. Okay, so resignation. Remember, not all solar angels are happy to go in, because, you know, they've earned a lot of freedom. And maybe not all of them have the same quality of love. Now, I've sometimes wondered, DK says, well, there are solar angels connected with the atomic triangle, there are solar angels connected with the petals, there are solar angels connected with the monastic permanent atom, as I pointed out. And I've wondered whether the solar angels connected with the monastic permanent atom were a little bit too high to go in yet. See, sometimes DK says, look, it's not just a selfish choice, that's just a human projection upon what really happened. The truth is they couldn't go in because they were vibrationally unsuited to go in. So 1/3 didn't go in, and 2/3 did go in. And probably we don't know the whole story there. Okay, the upper was resigned. So presumably when you have to sacrifice something in your life, is there a moment of acquiescence when you become resigned? Often. You know, the old saying, how's it said? I am resigned to my fate. That's how we say it. Or I feel, I acquiesce to my fate. It's a fancier word, but it's the same idea. I willingly give in to my fate. Okay. Like coming to this class. I acquiesce. Thank you. All right. Well, maybe it's me. Wait a second. It might be me. Okay. So are we now? Now this is interesting. The Great Five waited for the point of equidistant merging. There's something very Libran going on here. There's some sort of energetic distancing, which when it is achieved, the merging can occur. But there's like an adjustment that has to occur between the upper triad and the lower triad before the merging can occur. Now, who are the Great Five? Well, you know, this is one of those things. The Great Five could be the fifth creative hierarchy. No problem there. Who's waiting? The solar angels, who are members of the fifth creative hierarchy, are waiting until there's an adjustment between the two triads so we can have this coming together. On the other hand, I keep on wondering about the Great Five, whether they're not the Kumaras themselves. But, you know, they could be the five Kumaras who are actively the supervisors of all that is to transpire on the Earth globe, etc. But there's a problem here. There are several problems. First of all, three of the Kumaras are esoteric. So we should really call it the Great Four, shouldn't we? The three Buddhas of activity and Sanat Kumara. Sanat Kumara is called by two names having numbers involved with them. He's called the first Kumara because he's the most powerful and he is the representative of our planetary logos. He's also called the fourth Kumara. And sometimes DK hints at a fifth Kumara who is emerging from esoteric condition into a expressive condition, but then one of the other Buddhas of activity would cycle and become esoteric. So the Great Five, you know, in a way it seems like the fifth creative hierarchy, but it's a peculiar form of grammar. You would think it should be the Great Fifth instead of the Great Five. So are they the Great Five? Which one are they? Certainly the members of the fifth creative hierarchy are waiting. They are waiting for this point of equidistant merging between the upper triad and the lower triad. And I point out a discrepancy. The first work of individualization having occurred some 2.5 million years before the coming of the Kumaras to the Earth globe, well, if it was the Kumaras, the real coming of the Kumaras was when, compared to the coming of the solar angels? Who came first? The inferior ones always enter first, isn't it? The lower ray, third ray, enters first before the second. The solar angels enter before the Kumaras, don't they? Now, the only thing you can say is, well, maybe, you know, Sanat Kumara and his Kumaras were already here, but not on this globe yet, and maybe they were looking. But the, let's just say, the word five seems grammatically incorrect, like that word. Grammatically incorrect if it means the fifth creative hierarchy. Yet this assignment makes sense. There were not 5 Kumaras active at that time, but only 4. So, you know, for the moment, I'm just thinking the members of the fifth creative hierarchy waited and watched. Now, who are you more likely to to encounter? Who are you more likely to encounter? A member of the fifth kingdom or a member of the fifth creative hierarchy? What do you think? You, the disciple. You have fifth creative hierarchy members and you have fifth kingdom members. Who are you more likely to encounter? It's a trick question. Go ahead and answer, please. Hello. Hello out there. It's the after lunch crowd. Look, if you run into a fellow disciple, you're encountering a member of the fifth kingdom, aren't you? Aren't you? If you run into a great teacher like the Dalai Lama, or one of those high examples, Bishop Tutu, his friend, you're encountering a member of the fifth kingdom, right? So when's the last time you shook hands with a solar angel? Well, maybe in the initiation chamber, right? So let's just say, of course, in meditation, if it's done right and deeply, there is a kind of encounter, first through word, then through touch, then through sight with the solar angel, right? So it depends on the depth of your meditation. But let's just say that encounters with the fifth kingdom of nature are much more common than encounters with the fifth creative hierarchy. Right? Does that make sense? See, look, at all of these terms, we have to try to understand what they actually mean to us. Okay, now comes a little musical occultism. The foundation note ascended. What does that mean? What does that mean? I'll tell you what. The foundation note ascended. Let's go to Letters on Occult Meditation, and we'll say basic third. Okay. Eventually you will have the basic note of matter, the major third of the aligned personality, the dominant fifth of the ego, followed by the full chord of the monad or spirit. Does that make sense to us? Bum, 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 bum. Basic note of matter, major third of the aligned personality, the dominant fifth of the ego, followed by the full tone of the monad. That's it. It's all in a chord. So now we are learning. It's a musical statement. The foundation note ascended, right? The basic note of matter, right? Is it not possible? The basic note of matter ascended. This must be the note of the lower man or an aspect of the lower man. Is it the lowest or physical is the lowest or physical aspect meant? That aspect sounding a foundational note, the fundamental in music? Or is it the note of the entire personality considered as dense in relation to the planetary logos or solar logos? In other words, we discussed the idea that what is the dense physical body of the planetary logos? We just discussed that before lunch. How do you find that dense physical body of the planetary logos? Is it just density like this? It's the 18 lower subplanes. How do you find the dense physical body of the solar logos? Is it the same? 21. It includes the causal body. Remember that when you're in your causal body, as nice as it might be, you're still in the dense physical non-principled body of the solar logos. So when he talks about matter, matter is let's just say, is this basic and material in relation to man or to the planetary logos and solar logos? In other words, are we talking about the note of density that rises from the dense physical body of the solar logos, planetary logos, or the dense physical body of man. Anyway, something low is rising up. Now that makes sense, doesn't it? Remember how individualization took place on the moon chain. Animal man aspired, right? Something in animal man on the moon chain reached up towards his own spiritual aspect. And what happened then? Invocation and evocation, right? Someone was just saying that. An invocation is sent forth from the lower nature, and what happened? The higher nature of animal man responded, and you had individualization on the moon chain without the intervention of the solar angels. Interesting. I'm not sure exactly, not sure at all, how it took place in the previous major solar system, but there's an analogy there between the third ray chain and a previous third ray solar system. So maybe there's no solar angelic intervention. Maybe that's something that's happening in this solar system, and particularly on chains which are numerically aligned with the second ray. Like, for instance, 2 times 2 is 4, right? 2 plus 2 is 4. Our chain, the Earth chain, is numerically aligned with the energy of this solar system. Is that correct? Right? I mean, in other words, this is a good chain on which to learn the love, wisdom, energy, correct? Better than the third chain, or the moon chain, which was not numerically aligned, correct? Numerical resonance has a lot to do with the effective flow of energy from one center to another. Okay. So anyway, what's the word? The foundation note ascended. This is aspirational. Okay, let me put this down. This ascent indicates aspiration of the material towards the spiritual. Deep answered unto deep. When you hear that, deep answered unto deep, are the deeps on the same level? What does the word deep mean in this context? Deep answered unto deep. Deep answered unto deep. I just want to suggest, yes? Well, I think, usually we think about the deep of the ocean, because something is inaccessible. Because of the depth of the ocean, you cannot get to the bottom of it. It's deep. So the ocean is a perfect symbol for depth. But basically, there are some inaccessible aspects which are responding to each other. In other words, is it possible to have deep above and deep below? That's what I'm trying to say here. There's a higher deep and a lower deep. Oh, that's a deep matter, a real high thought. Or there's also just the depths of matter. That's deep too, because you can't get to it. I mean, suppose we wanted to go into the depths of matter. Look, it's taken 100 years, and the physicists can't even penetrate it yet. That's that deep, that inaccessible. There's the depths of matter and the depths of spirit. So one's a higher deep, one's a lower deep. So these two deeps, with profound implications and inaccessible aspects, are responding to each other. The triads, 2 triads, lower and higher, are responding to each other. Now here is where I tend to get a little confused. I'm confused because of capitalization. The 5-fold cord awaited the response from those whose hour had come. Now, this is not adequate. And the word those is capitalized. And the word whose is capitalized. This is a problem. So what is the 5-fold cord? Now, normally, if we had an individualized man, he would be 5-fold. No problem. But we don't yet have an individualized man. See, every vehicle would sound a note, right? So are you fivefold or fourfold? Or both? Okay, look at it. Look at it this way. You have an etheric physical body. I just thought of something. Okay. You have an astral body. You have a mental body. You have a personality. You are a personality. And you are the soul and incarnation. No problem. You're fivefold, right? Is there any way to be fivefold without being individualized? Sorry? And it just occurred to me, yes, there is a way. So could the fivefoldness of animal, man, no, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. You know, in other words, a normal man can be fivefold. Tell me how. Without the soul. How is that possible? How can a normal man be fivefold? Let's count. Dense physical body. Etheric body. Astral body. Mental body. Personality. Fivefold. Lower five. No problem. But this type of man doesn't have a personality. Not yet. Because the solar angels have not intervened. And then, you know, here's the problem. Those whose hour had come, if it's a capital T and a capital W, there's no way we can say that the fivefold cord, who is the fivefold solar angel, who certainly is fivefold, you know, I mean, the fivefold solar angel is easily enumerated as five. It's a pentagram and so forth. Awaits the response of those whose hour had come, awaits animal man's response. No. It's a capital T and a capital W. So those whose hour had come is the watchers. So what is the fivefold cord? The fivefold cord awaited the response. You see, it seems like it should be in the area of man, doesn't it? Something down here which is fivefold awaits the high ones whose time has come. Is that correct? It's problematic. You see what I mean? So what is the fivefold cord? Can you be fivefold without being individualized? Yes, you can. A normal man can be fivefold without soul. The cord of the fivefold solar angel is a possibility. Well, I don't know. I'm just going to have to pass that one by. I wish I could penetrate it, but maybe it'll come in a dream. The foundation note ascended, deep answered unto deep. The fivefold cord awaited the response. Well, I've got another idea. Remember how 3 energies went forth, 4 energies went forth, and then, remember, the first degree, it had 3 energies, right? The second degree had how many energies? 4 energies, right? Then the third degree went forth. We're not told, but it's on the mental plane. So let's just put this as a possibility. Wow. Okay, just thought of that too. The third degree can be fivefold, as the first degree is threefold, and the second degree is fourfold. But man is, in his higher nature, major monad, sub-monad. You know what I'm doing now, right? Atmic, Buddhic, Manasic. Five-fold higher man. Are you fivefold? Are you fivefold higher? See what I mean? You have a major monadic ray, you have a minor monadic ray, you have an atmic permanent atom, you have a buddhic permanent atom, you have a monastic permanent atom. You're fivefold above. So, there we have some fivefoldness. Awaited the response of those whose hour had come, and now we have a reason for a justification for putting capital T, capital W to indicate the solar angels. You understand? I don't know whether DK said to Alice Bailey, okay, now capitalize this, now capitalize that. I don't know. Maybe. Sometimes it really looks like it. Like when you get to page 177 of Cosmic Fire, I'll show you what I mean. You have an amazing thing in one sentence. Under the regime of the ego, the ray upon which the ego can be found holds sway. That's either really careless editing or we're being told something. There's a higher ego, a lower ego. See what I mean? Right in the same sentence, capitalization. So, even though there could have been some editor who said, oh, I think I'll capitalize this or that or whatever, and it can happen, sentences like this really make you pay attention. Because there is the triadal ego, and then there is the ego on the higher mental plane. DK almost never uses the little word ego the way we do in the West. You know how we are in the West? We say, oh, he's such an egomaniac, like little ego, meaning like personal self. Almost never is the word ego. I can't remember any time unless he says lower ego. Let's see if there is a lower ego. Did any one of you have one I can borrow? Okay, let's see something here. Nothing. Nothing. See what I mean? So that capital ego and little ego are still representing spiritual factors, aren't they? And that's why you really have to pay attention to capitalization. So even though some crazy editor might have done something. So that's why when you read this, I think my computer is protesting. I'm going to get a slowdown strike here any minute. The fivefold cord awaited the response from those capital, whose capital hour had come, and we know the solar angel's hour had come. But at least I feel a little better having established fivefold man on the upper planes. Because there's a part of us on the logoic plane, the free monad. There's a part of us on the monadic plane, the encapsulated monad. There's a part of us on the atmic plane, buddhic plane, and higher monastic plane. We are fivefold above. We are. So I answered my own question, or at least if it's not correct, at least it's plausible. Deep answered unto deep, the fivefold cord awaited the response from those whose hour had come. Okay, let's move on. Dark grew the space between the spheres. Radiant two balls became. What happens to triangles when they have a tremendous circulation of energy? Shh. Right? They turn into spheres, correct? Now, a little bit more mathematics. The threefold 35, finding the distance just, another one of those Libra words, flashed like a sheet of intermittent flame, and lo, the work was done. The great 5 met the 3 and 4. The point intermediate was achieved. The hour of sacrifice of flame arrived, and for eons hath endured. When is this being written? By the time it's being written, it's endured for a long time. The timeless ones entered into time. The watchers began their task, and lo, the work proceeds. That's the end of the stanza. All right, let's take a look. Anything suggested to you as you read these words? I know this is the toughest work one can possibly do in DK, interpretation of these stanzas. Maybe I shouldn't say that because, in a way, some of the intuitive group work, which is on a different ray, is equally as difficult. And some of the study of the formulas is equally as difficult. But here you don't, you're like you're in the ocean. You don't have anchor points. If we could just achieve anchor points in some of these interpretations, give me a point to stand on and I can move the world. You need a point that you can be sure of. And once you're sure of that point, it's got to be that. Then you can assign the other things with reasonable confidence. But sometimes we're all at sea. We don't know what level we're on. We don't know who the players are. Is this man? Is this the planet? Is this the sun? Is this a chain? Is this the cosmos? We don't know what level we're on. So until we get an anchor point, it's hard. But just be persistent. Dark grew the space between the spheres. Okay, here's another idea. The fivefold cord may be a fivefold energy from the cosmic mental plane, which inspires the solar angels from above, since their true origin, or fivefold spiritual man. I did this before, but I've got to do it again. Atmic, Buddhic, Manasic. 3 triadal parts. Okay, let's go on. Dark grew the space between the spheres. So, what is this? Why dark? It's what? It is, and light is about to appear. Light is about to appear in this darkness. This darkness is the scene of a creative act about to happen. Like you go to the play. What happens? Why don't they just leave the house lights on and just draw the curtains? You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. Drama, or just you're in the movies and it's a commercial or something, and now all of a sudden it's the movie. No, the lights go down, the stage fades out, and in comes the new thing. So darkness is the preparation for the new. It's the prelude to the creative act. Yeah, exactly. Dark grew the space between the spheres. Now, why are they spheres? Like I just said, why are they spheres? They started as triangles. Why spheres? They've been activated. In other words, they're turning on themselves in all directions. Triangles tend to become spherical in occultism when they are sufficiently activated. So they are now, of course, they're not activated the way they will be later, but they are now spheres of being, which have become, which are triangles activated. In other words, they are spheres of being and spheres of consciousness. Now later they'll really be round. So is this the space whereon the egoic lotus is to be created? Yes. Yes. And darkness precedes creativity. We said that, but okay. Radiant two balls became. Well, they're spheres, right? So before this is not yet the causal body, is it? This is the upper triad and the lower triad. And remember, these words, Libran words, are coming in. I want to point this out. Libran words, what were they? Libran words like just and equidistant. are presented. Now, why could this be significant? Remember, there is a law of the soul where you've got two balls. Do you remember where? Esoteric Psychology 2, Law of the Soul, two balls. What's it all about? There you have it. Remember that one? The second law of the soul. We live it every day, right? The law of polar union. The law of magnetic impulse. Two balls. Polar union. Two fiery balls. Even better. Only in this particular case, what are the two balls in this particular case? In the law of magnetic impulse. I know, esoteric psychology studies have been so long ago. When did we take that? 1990, was it? Up to 90. It was 1992 to 1994, wasn't it? 1992, 1994. How many were in that class? At least two. This is the survival rate of these classes. I want to tell you. Yes, they are. They've passed on. See, who was, well, of course, there was Karen, and I don't remember that Benta was there. Benta came in with astrology, and Christina Friendo, she was there. And, oh, yes, I remember various people collapsing during the rituals, so they were there. Nicholas, oh, he was there. He was young then. I was the same age. Okay, so anyway, two fiery balls, polar union, and what are those fiery balls? They're not the higher triad and the lower triad, are they? Although, in a way, they are symbols of them. Law of polar union, what's getting together under Libra? Ruled by Vulcan and Venus. Hint, hint. How about the head center and the asana center? What do you say to that? Is that good? Head center ruled by Vulcan, asana center ruled by Venus. The symbols of the soul and personality united, two fiery balls, right? Right? Only those, there, now you've got a soul. And you've got a personality. Here you don't have either of those yet. You just have an upper triad and a lower triad. No soul and personality yet, right? The lower triad is not yet the personality, is it? It needs to be really united to be a personality, and it's not even individualized, so it can't be a personality. Okay, now we've established that. It's really ruled by the sign Libra, the law of polar union. That's the esoteric name for it. Okay. Dark grew the space between the spheres. Something was about to happen. Okay. What am I doing, and why am I doing it? That is the Maya question, isn't it? Libra is a word like just the two radiant balls may suggest the higher triad and the lower triad. We do have a merging, much like the higher correspondence to the merging of the law of magnetic impulse, which also has two balls or spheres in its symbolism. Now, here's a good one. The threefold 35. Finding the distance just. Flashed like a sheet of intermittent flame, and lo, the work was done. How much is 3 times 35? $105. Make you think of anything? 105? 105 going once? Going twice? Kumaras? 105 Kumaras. Okay. Maybe the Kumaras. Maybe. But there are reasons why not. There are 105 Kumaras that came to Earth. Sanat Kumara, well, come to Earth. They were always on Earth. They came to our globe. If we multiply 3 times 35 times 3, we have 105, which is precisely the number of Kumaras said to have come from the Venus globe with the Venus chain to the Earth chain, okay, etc., etc. And I want to put in a big but problem. But we are in a period 21 million years ago, and the Kumaras came 18.5 million years ago. Problem, right? We are at the beginning of the individualization of man on the Earth chain 21 million years ago, and the Kumaras aren't here yet. They're not flashing like intermittent flames. So if the 3, yeah, exactly. If the 3 times 35 are not the Kumaras, is there a number assignment to the solar angelic, no, that's sacral center, solar angelic host, which is similar to the number of Kumaras? Of course, it would have to be a symbolic number, because, you know, there's a lot more than, there's 60 billion of these, and I don't know how many assigned to Earth, and we just got 105 Kumaras. So is there some kind of division? Is there some kind of division within the solar angelic host which is related to the number 105, 205? Now, maybe I want to turn to page 39 of Letters on Occult Meditation. We might get a hint. If they can't be, no, in a way, I want these flashing Kumaras to come along because the number is so right, 105. It's just 2.5 million years early. Now the question is, and besides, they are not the issue yet. It's the coming of the Watchers that is the issue, isn't it? So if I turn to Letters on Occult Meditation, page 39, we see here that on the first subplane, there are 35 groups of 35 groups, presumably related to the solar angels, because you wouldn't have groups of egos on the, well, maybe not. Maybe the egos are gone, because the 30, how far does the causal body extend? Does the causal body have an expression on the first subplane of the mental plane? We learn that the causal body starts out where? On what subplane? The causal body is first created on what subplane? Come on now. It's only been, how many years have we been together? I'm going to have an attack of self-pity if you don't answer this question. On what subplane? On what subplane is the egoic body first created? Where it stays until the first initiation approximately. Close. Close. Right. That's good. Since there are 3 subplanes on the higher mental plane, we got that. Okay, good. It's created on the 3rd subplane. And then around the time of the second initiation, it rises, refocuses, repolarizes. Where? Second subplane. Does it ever reach the first subplane? Well, that's a problem. Theoretically, you say, oh yeah, 3rd initiation, it reaches the first subplane. The trouble is, the causal body is destroyed at the 4th initiation while it's still on the 2nd subplane. That is a problem. Although you could say, are different aspects of the causal body vibrating in such a way that parts of it are on one subplane and part another. But it may be that the causal body never really reaches the first subplane, per se. but the lower part of the triad does. So there's something here about the number 35, the 3 times 35, the 105, the relation to the Kumaras, the solar angels. Something here has to be solved. And I'm not sure, that I can solve it, or we can solve it at this time. Yeah. Yeah, the 3 times 35, they could be connected with the monastic permanent atom. Yes, but the thing is, of course, there's so many of them. And we've got the number 105 to deal with. That's our problem. Well, we're told in some of these stanzas that there are 60 billion Agnishvatas, solar angels, whatever you want to call them, lords of the flame, that come in. But they don't all come in at the same time. 60 billion is the number of solar angels in our solar system. So obviously, the individualization process is not all occurring at the same time. Could it be that our little Earth is so greedy and so sick that it sops up most of the solar angels available? Know what I mean? Because there's such an intervention needed between spirit and matter on our particular planet, that do we have the majority of solar angels here? And not only that, a lot of devas are active on other planets because those planets are primarily devic and not human at all. So, there's a real problem to solve here about how many solar angels really exist on our planet. 60 billion human monads in the solar system, 6/7 of the monads out of incarnation, 1/7 of the monads in, approximately. Let's just say there were 6 billion people on our planet. 6 billion people means that 6 times 7 is 42, that 36 billion are out of incarnation. Yes, I know, but I'm giving the planet the benefit of the doubt. Now we'd have to go up to 49 billion, which would leave only 11 billion human units left to distribute in all the rest of the planets. Something's wrong. There's a blind here. You understand what I mean? We're told that we have a particular solar system that has 60 billion human units and 140 billion devic units, presumably self-conscious ones. And so we have 200 billion monads in our solar system now, 140 billion of which are deva monads, only 60 billion of which are human monads. And yet, if our Earth sops up 49 billion monads, or, solar angels, there's only 11 billion left for all the rest. So something's wrong, especially if you think that 6/7 of all of those beings are out of incarnation generically, and only 1/7 is in incarnation. That leaves very few for the rest of the planets, which is impossible. Something's wrong. Anyway, that's one of those things we'll ask DK a little later, after we get rid of some of the fundamentals like controlling our emotions. Then we'll be qualified to ask. Well, I suppose we're all there. Anyway, the flashing was intermittent. So who's flashing? That's the question. Okay. I don't need a break. I'm just getting going. Okay, so who's flashing and have they been arrested? That's the question. All right. Did you say? Did you say orange? Oh, okay. Well, petals are of all kinds, but primarily the basic color of the egoic body is orange, which is flame color. Yes. You have, but nobody else is doing this. You're the only ones. Wait. You are special. Now remember that always. And let's every one of us indulge in the glamour of special selection. Only us. All right, well, you're right. You know, it is 3:59, but Martha, if she had just waited till 4, I would have been ready. The flashing was intermittent, and it may suggest that there were 3 waves of flashes corresponding to the 3 major rays, or corresponding, if not to the major rays, then corresponding to the 3 units on the mental plane, the monastic permanent atom, the petals, and the atomic triangle. In other words, we got 3 intermittent things. Solar angels seem to be coming forth. Why they should be in the number 35. See, 35 make a master. That's interesting. It says 35 vortices of fire make a master. So we have this very important number, 35, and it's related to the 5th ray very strongly. It's both atmic and mental. Somehow we have to get closure on. There's no problem assigning it to the Kumaras, but the Kumaras aren't really involved yet. The idea of distance enters in. What is distance between chains and globes? And they might even be superimposed. Maybe there's no distance, but we might talk about vibratory alignment when we mean distance. When vibratory alignment is right, then the distance is just. There must be a resonance between chains and globes for a vibrational door to open and the flash to occur. A vibrational door open according to the principle of resonance, and that is how we think of distance in this case. It's very ordered. Yes, and as a matter of fact, we dealt a little bit with the idea of music in these stanzas. You will see the musical interplay. It's all very ordered. Remember that Sanat Kumara is writing a symphony, and the Solar Logos is writing a sonata. Solar Sonata and Sanat Kumara's symphony. So everything is beautifully timed, okay? So probably we're not dealing with the coming of the Kumaras to Earth. We could say they flash in, but we seem to be dealing with solar angels. And we must find the way of relating 3 times 35 to the solar angels. I just feel the solution to this. I can't quite grasp yet what is, but and I wonder, 35 is it's a 7 times 5 number. It just seems like there are 3 types of solar angels, especially. There are actually 5 types of solar angels, but 3 of them are particularly discussed. There are 3 minds that have to unite on the mental plane. The 3 groups of solar angels supervise those aspects of mind: abstract mind, son of mind, and lower mind. Well, what does it say? Let's take a look. I may have misinterpreted. The threefold 35. Well, the 35 are threefold, all of them. Now, who are the 35? The 35 are particularly groups upon the highest of the mental planes. Are they threefold? Now, that's interesting. Whoa. Yes, possibly. It's very interesting about the permanent atoms. What do we learn about permanent atoms on the triadal levels? Are they just like permanent atoms below? Remember the permanent atoms? They build vehicles, right? Atomic permanent atom, buddhic, they're different. They're threefold. The permanent atoms on the triadal levels have only 3 major parts to them and not 7. So there's another hint there. Let's just say, and then I'll let you go. Let's just say, perhaps we can say that, well, what was I going to say? I had it in my mind. I'll tell you what. You go, I'll think. You have a nice cake, whatever is there. Crumbs of bread. There I go, sacrificing again. Oh, okay. And I will join you before long. So do come back, and then we're almost done with this stanza, you know. But like I said, it's going to be hard to do 13 stanzas unless we just want to read them and hope. Bye. Enjoy. Okay, enjoy. Okay, the 3 times 35, perhaps I had it in my mind, everybody, but I can't think of it right now. 3 times 35, oh yeah, perhaps we can say that the 35 groups on the first subplane of the higher mental plane are indicated. But they flashed intermittently, and that is the problem, and there's no way to divide 35 by 3, but there's a way to multiply it. Anyway, let's just say many questions here, hoping for resolution. Okay, we try that. Now we're almost finished with this particular stanza. Yes, well, almost. Yes, we are. We are almost finished with this particular stanza. And then we'll do a little, you'll have a chance to discuss at the end and ask any questions. There are a few of us here. 16 who are coming and going, I'm sure, according to need. Okay, seeing some new people here. Jocelyn, welcome. Gabrielle, welcome. Elena, you're here. Eva. Elena, another Elena, 2 Elenas. Edward, Bio, Athena, Anu, Andrew. Okay, some of you are in time zones which are asleep, Edward, and some are present. We will continue with this in a few minutes. Meanwhile, I will start to turn off the equipment, and we will continue when we come back. Very profound stanza. I'm trying to go through some of the methods of interpretation and the things one has to think about when one wants to assign these numbers to realities. Okay, I'll turn this off for a minute. And this off for a minute.